My name is Tammy, and today I'm going to show you how to make a tea towel for your kitchen. First, I'm going to go over the items that you're going to need to make the tea towel. Scrap material, needle and thread, your tea towel. I usually like to use upholstery thread because it's a little bit thicker and it's easier to double up and slide through the thickness of the material. Fusible web, which you can buy at Walmart, Amazon, at any craft store or quilting shop, Joann Fabrics, and it comes in a bolt, so you can just buy it by the yard. Scissors, these are sewing scissors, so they cut through material very nicely. A pencil, you're gonna need your pattern. So today I'm gonna use a duck. But you can also use a pattern that is just traceable, and your material. And so the fusible web can also go over your item that you're going to trace. But again, today I chose to just have a duck cut out, and I'm just going to put that on my fusible web. So you're going to put the trace the duck on the smooth side of the fusible web. There's a rough side and a smooth side. You can feel it. It's hard to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trace my duck onto my fusible web, again on the smooth side. So now I have my duck traced, and I'm going to adhere it to the material, my scrap material. But my scrap material is a solid color, but if you have material like this that is solid on one side and not on the other, you're going to want to adhere it to the opposite side, not your nice material side, because this is going to be glued onto your material. So you want to make sure that you're gluing the nice side on the material. So I'm going to use my iron. So you're going to need an iron as well. I'm going to use my iron, and I'm going to take my duck on my fabric, and I've have a damp towel that I'm just going to place over the duck. And I have my iron set on wool, and I'm just going to put it over the duck for 10 to 15 seconds so that it sticks to the material. I'm going to remove the towel, and then I'm going to go over it with the iron just to make sure that it's adhered nicely to the material. So it has. So now I'm going to now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the duck. So I didn't want to cut out the duck first because then it would be hard for me to adhere it to the material. I always like to adhere it this way, then I can cut the duck out, and then I can go from there. Once I cut the duck, I'm going to use my iron again, and I'm just going to adhere it to the towel. So my towel that I have right here on the table, I've folded in into 3 sections, and I'll show you that in a minute once I'm done cutting the duck out. And yeah, so just because some people like to just fold it in half, but I like to fold it in thirds, the towel, so that it looks really nice when it's hung on your stove or on your, on your, the handle that you want to put it on. So we're gonna go through and we're just gonna finish cutting up this duck. So now I need to take my duck and I need to take this fusible web off. So I like to use a needle and just kind of try to poke it in between the fusible web and the material just to start a little edge so I can peel it off. And don't worry if you end up fraying the material just a little bit. It's quite all right because you can just go ahead and just snip off any little frayed pieces. So I've got my needle in between and I started to get a little edge and I'm just gonna pull it apart. And it feels like you're gonna ruin the material, but you're really not. You're just kind of getting what has glued onto the material from the fusible web. So now I'm going to take this off and I'm going to adhere it to my towel. So here's my towel, and as I said, I folded it 3 times so it's all folded on each other. And so if you notice, there's a little hanging piece right here. I like to put that at the top. And then I'm going to put my duck right on the bottom. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my iron and I'm going to put the damp towel on my iron, or on top of the pattern. I'm going to make sure I place it exactly where I want it. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to bring it right over to my iron. And I'm going to place my damp towel on it again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure that everything is nice and flat underneath so that it doesn't iron on there crooked or with a big wrinkle in it. So I have my damp towel in my iron and I'm just going to iron it right on there for, again, 10 to 15 seconds just so it fuses onto the towel. So now I'm just going to take this off and I'm going to, again, just go over it lightly with my iron just to make sure that it adhered to my towel. So now I'm all set with the iron. I'm going to turn it off and now I'm going to show you how to do a running stitch. And at the end of the video, I will show you as well pictures of the running stitch, just so that you can have an example. I'm going to do a running stitch and I'm going to do a blanket stitch. And again, I have an example of the blanket stitch as well. So I like to start on a corner, like a corner of, the duck or whatever you're working on. So I'm going to, open up my towel, and you always kind of want to start underneath so that you can't see the end or the beginning of the thread. You don't want to see the knotted end. So I'm starting underneath and I'm going to do my running stitch. And I'm using doubled up black thread just because I want it to look primitive and I kind of want it to pop out. So I doubled it up. The thread, is doubled. And I'm just going to go along and I'm just going to do a running stitch. It's very easy to do a running stitch. You just have to remember just to kind of space out your stitches so that they look nice and even. So it's just pretty much, you know, over and under, and that's it throughout the whole thing. So that's the running stitch. So I've prepared another towel just to show you the blanket stitch. So I've already cut out my dog bones and I've adhered them to my towel, and I've already done the blanket stitch on these two, but I'm going to show you how to do the blanket stitch on the one in the middle, the beige colored one. So first you're going to take your needle and you're going to bring it from underneath and you're going to pull it through. And you're going to stitch in just a little bit, like a quarter of an inch, and then you're going to start to pull it through. But what you're going to do is you're going to poke it through here, right along the edge of the material. You're going to take your top piece and you're going to bring it around back, and you're going to just pull it right through. And then you're going to do the next one. So next one's going to be just a little bit over. And again, you're going to poke it through and you're going to poke it up along the edge. You're going to take your top piece of thread, bring it underneath. You can hold it with your, with your left hand just to make sure it all stays behind the needle. And then you're just going to pull it through. So it makes like a nice finished edge, and it looks like it was kind of machine sewn. And you're just going to continue along until you are done the entire bone. So it's kind of nice because it outlines the bone and it gives it a nice little stitch. So you're going to do that throughout the whole bone, and you're going to finish it up, and then you're going to be all done with the blanket stitch. And when you finish, I always go underneath. So if I was done right now, I would just finish up with going underneath the bone on the bottom, and I would just pull it through, and I would just cut it off and snip the thread, and then just tie a couple knots on the underside. So I'll show you how I did it on these. See, I just pulled it through and just tied a knot, and then so it's just finished. And I will show you the finished product once I'm all done. Once I'm all done this one, but actually I wanted to show you the duck. I wanted to show you the finished duck, and then I also wanted to show you how I machine sewed this reindeer face. So this is all done with the machine with a special applique presser foot. So it can be done on the machine. And then I have another one that I've prepared that I have not completed yet. So this one I can either do the running stitch or the blanket stitch, or I can sew it on my machine. Next is an example of the running stitch and then the blanket stitch. And I bought most of my supplies at Appleberry Fabrics. She has a website and also does mail order. Here are some of the tea towel patterns that are available. More tea towel patterns. Next is what the pattern looks like when you open up the packaging. And this next slide is this 2 stitches that I completed in my demonstration. And here's some of my favorite work to inspire